Let's give it a few minutes till people join. Awesome. It's been a minute. Let's start off. I see people joining here. Thanks everyone for joining our session today. Before going into the topic or anything, there are a few housekeeping items that we want to discuss about. Uh, Today's LinkedIn Live will be for around 30 minutes. We'll start exploring and talking about the topic, which is database savings plan, reserved instances for databases, which one is better, what are the strategies to follow, why do we need to talk about it, etc. and stuff. And also talking about adaptive learning model and how it works in the real world playbook, etc. and stuff. And we'll take questions from you all. You can just drop your questions in the LinkedIn comments or X comments or in the YouTube comments. We'll be able to see them here. And today's event is recorded as well, so you can share it with your colleagues or your friends within your company, so they will learn more about this and how to strategize this. And we are happy to answer all your questions. And joining us today will be Raj, who is Director of Customer Success at NOps. And as you guys know, I'm Shari. I am Senior Solution Architect at NOps, and you guys have seen me a lot of times doing all these webinars. And in the same process, we are doing today's webinar as a series. And Raj, a quick introduction about you.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me in today's session. Really excited to talk about this. This is a very buzzing topic. As we all know, AWS launched the database savings plan back in December at reInvent. That's where the announcement came in, and we have been flooded with questions and a lot of people looking forward to what this is, how can they leverage it best from our customers, from people we talk to in the industry. So really excited.
Awesome. And as you guys know, today's we'll be talking about savings plans, database savings plans specifically, and which on the surface looks like one of the best idea that AWS has had in years. But in practice, it might be the easiest way for any FinOps person, for any organization to lock yourself into a very expensive mistake. It's great if you strategize it practically and implement it really well with a guardrails around it. But otherwise, you are getting yourself locked into a very expensive mistake. And that's not the drama. We are already seeing this play out, and we have already seen a couple of customers using it and also getting locked into this mistake. And that's where we'll be talking more about this. So let's start with the obvious question, right? Raj, why do you think AWS even introduced this database savings plan?
hmm Yeah, that's a great question to begin with. So let me put it this way: the old world stopped working, right? That's why they have to come up with different sort of plans for customers. And by saying that old world stopped working, what I mean is 10 years ago databases were boring, right? RDS instances, they lived forever. You could buy an RI, set it, forget it. But there's a lot of risk to it, but fast forward to today. If I ask you, Shori, you probably are using Aurora, DynamoDB, serverless, auto scaling, what else? Global replicas, everything in a mix, right? Nothing sits still. So what AWS needed for customers was a commitment model that could follow this chaos. I call it organized chaos because it's good, but it can very easily go out of hand, especially on the cost side of the house. So that's basically why they launched the database savings plan.
I mean, that definitely makes sense if you look in the real world, right? Like we have been in AI for past couple of years, and not everybody uses standard RDS. There's document DB that many people or many companies use to process all their, PDF files or any kind of files to be embedded into their AI model or application using that service. There are like many services people are using. No traditional RDS works for anyone. They're
Mhm.
modernizing it in a way, and as you modernize it, it gets very expensive. And one of the most important service that I used to love and I still love is database migration service, DMS. Many people who wants to migrate to cloud in the beginning phases, they use DMS in a very explicit way, and they use it for like for at least 6 months to 1 year, and it gets very expensive, and they have no way to get out of that bill, right? With database, you can cover it, and we'll talk more about it. But I love it. But let's look at like what AWS promises in general, right? Let's be
Mhm.
honest, that pitch is very attractive from AWS. You buy one plan, one hourly dollar amount, and you get discounts across all these 9 services. Aurora, DynamoDB, RDS, everything is magically handled by AWS, which it says, AWS clearly says, don't worry about the details. We have got this, right? I mean, yes, it's easy to looking at it from an 10,000 feet or 30,000 feet perspective. When you buy one plan, $1 amount, it's easy, nothing to worry about and nothing to think about. And very interestingly, when a cloud provider says, hey, there's nothing to think about or nothing to worry about, that kind of stuff, that's usually where the risk starts, right? Because you're locking into a dollar commitment and you're locking into a very high risk, because even though it's 1 year, but if you're, let's assume you started a $30 savings plan or $30 database savings plan, you're getting yourself locked into a very high amount, which is not we want to be at, and which is not where we want to be at, right? And when you come to the reality and the hood, right? When you come into it, it bec- and it becomes very complex. You look at the database things when purchasing it's just a very simple UI, and you're like, clicking a button that has a $250,000 or $1 million in risk for that, where you're committing to AWS. But underneath it, you have 20,000 pricing permutations and combinations to look at, right? And also at the same time, you have different engines, different deployment models, and you have serverless billing, and you have all kind of dimensions that's coming into picture. And with all these combinations, the complexity gets increased, and the complexity is never going to go away. You have your risk committed here, and at the same time, your complexity kept increasing here, right? And
Mhm.
how are you going to decide or determine what's best for you in this case?
Right, right. And what I kind of look at it is when you commit to a savings plan, right? Be it database, be it compute, doesn't really matter. But the way I look at it is you're committing $100 per hour, $50 per hour. You're not buying 100% assured discount or 100% assured capacity, right? That's a different concept. What we're doing here is making a forward looking financial bet on, hey, this is how my database architecture will evolve in next 1 year, right? So that's a key point where this is not actual capacity. This is not 100% assured discount, because if you don't use stuff, this is just a waste of money, right? So it's a forward looking financial bet.
Exactly. And in this world, as we know, like, we are testing and doing all these kind of projects in these world. Like, for example, there's like AI projects that every company must have done. And there is so many services they build up just to get this AI project successful. And now 6 months down the lane, they'll shut it off. Now, in that case, what are you going to do with this savings plan that you have overcommitted for? You are getting discounts on some things, but in the net situation, you might not have an ROI in this case, right? And especially when it comes to databases, nobody knows how it's going to evolve. There is some confidence level around RDS, but if you look at overall database services, like you have 9 databases that are covered by this database system, unless you have confidence across all these 9 services, committing to a higher dollar value is yourself committing a financial suicide there. And
Absolutely.
going in depth about yeah, going in depth about this savings plan, right? What this really is about.
Yeah. So if you look at the picture, this is a great visual actually. If you look here, you see there's regions, different sort of services in terms of Aurora, DMS, Elastic Cache, Valkey, key spaces, all these different sort of things that are combined into one single plan. That's again, that's the pitch, as you said, Shori, right? That's combined into one single commitment plan. But this is where we need to start looking into things a little more carefully, right? And put perspective to a lot of this. Database savings plan is not capacity. Once again, it's not a simple reservation. It's think of it's a floating dollar pool. You commit to a dollar amount and then it's floating across different services that you have.
So basically, if you think of it, right, it's very interesting because you, every hour AWS pours into whatever is eligible database usage you have into that pool, i.e.,
Mhm.
you have nine services. Let's assume you're using nine services altogether. Okay. This specific day, today it might be covering Aurora, tomorrow it could be covering Valky, this specific hour it could be covering key spaces, next hour it could be using DMS or it could be applied there. You don't know what it's going to be. This quarter it could be all the regular services, and next quarter it could be covering all the serverless, right? Again, savings plan go and sit in a place where it gives the maximum discount, and giving RIs the priority. RIs go and slide in first priority, and then savings plan get applied wherever it gets the maximum savings. So it's a floating dollar pool, as Raj mentioned appropriately.
Yeah,
You are never defined on that you are going to get discounts on this only service unless until you only have that service, right?
absolutely. And I do again want to from bring in a little more context on why we're looking into this from this cost angle or a floating dollar pool angle is because you get the flexibility. That's 100%, right? But what you give up unknowingly is control, right? And we're going to get into a lot of mechanics of why I think, we can explain a little bit of why I'm saying like we give up control. But guess what? Ironically, when my CFO comes to me or my finance comes to me every month, they don't ask me how many databases instances I'm running, how many Valky instances I'm running, right? Nobody, like I might ask you, Shori, but nobody asks me that question. All they ask me is, all right, what's this going to cost next month? Is it going to stay same or are we wasting this? So control is exactly what finance teams want and think that we're buying, but in reality, we're not buying control. We're buying flexibility, but we're giving up control.
Exactly, right? Like, and finance team, one thing that finance no finance team loves is unreliability or unpredictability. They don't like discounts you're going to get this month and next month and how it's going to go. For example, as we talked about the floating pool in this slide, right? If it's applied on RDS, you're getting 20%, which is great. But let's assume it went to serverless or something else service. Next month, you're going to get very less discount. You're going to end up in 10% discount or 5% discount, which you, in comparison, your finance team might say, we compared for this dollar amount for such a less savings in that month, right? So it's hard to find that predictability and a reliability in the factor of savings, how much we are committing as a risk, how much we're getting in an ROI kind of basis, right? So those are all the questions that you might have, like, how much I'm going to get from a finance team, right? Uh, Jumping into the next topic within this, right? What do they cover today, and what do they do not cover, right? And this is where the rules of game starts to break out. Yes, I can figure out, and I'm great. I'm fine with RDS. I only have one service. Doesn't matter. You are very committed to database savings plan. You love it, and you want to purchase it. But the main important part is that database savings plan loves modern services. That means it loves Aurora, DynamoDB, Valky, serverless databases, etc. But the main thing it's leaving out is older RTS family. Anything sixth generation or older, they are not covered under savings plans. And the next thing, it's also leaving memory DB. And the main part, Redshift. There are many customers I work with who has a lot of Redshift and Redis, and they thought even on 7th generation it could be covered. It's unfortunately not covered. So AWS is motivating you in a way to migrate to the latest ones. Well, the cost benefit is up to you guys because you're paying more to move to the latest generations. You have engineering resources involved there, and you're paying more to the same instance which you used to work with better, and you're getting more performance for sure, but you're paying 10 to 20% more. But again, applying the savings plan, you're going to end up with where you are before. So it's up to you as an organization whether that ROI makes sense for you guys or not.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're a user who just uses RDS instances of I don't know fifth gen or something like that, sixth gen maybe, then we shouldn't even be discussing all of this, right? Because it's like you have RDS, you have older generations, and yeah, go buy a RI, right? That's what I would do. Um, Now, usually when or people are talking about doing database as savings plans is because they have a mix of, I don't know, generation of instances, multiple services too, like what a bunch of them mentioned in the slide. um, then it means that I am always juggling between two commitment systems, RIs and the savings plan. I have to. I've got no option, right? Either I migrate everything to the latest tech and only worry about savings plan, which by the way, again, my recommendation is not the greatest strategy always, because there's a lot of mechanics behind, is it the best discount rate for this particular usage type and all those sort of things, right? But think of this. I'm always juggling between RIs and savings plans, with the possibility of overlapping or sometimes even competing for the same coverage, right? That's what key is when strategizing on these things.
And exactly, you're right. We have to use both if there is a possibility, and it's great. But knowing which one to go where and how to model this perfectly with a proper prediction and a proper, coverage at zero risk is what matters the most. You want to be, as if you want to do it yourself, absolutely need to model it in a way that it has zero risk, used you covering 100% and also interacting both where there is no underutilization. And guess what? It is very tough to do that. And that's where we jump into the next topic. Where does teams lose money, right? This is where the real financial damage lies, right? Teams report RIs thinking database savings plan will replace them completely, all the RIs, only to realize that half their spend is not eligible, right? And then if they're not eligible, they move to either to newer generation or serverless, just to spend more in resources, spend more in those services in latest generation to end up where they are before, right? They, and also sometimes I've seen customers, they overcommit on serverless workloads, which are volatile by nature. Serverless itself is event driven, and you want to have that cost reduction there to have it in an event driven approach. But guess what? You're committing that the database savings plan is going to cover your serverless, but unfortunately, guess what? Database savings plan will be covered in DynamoDB, and it will eat up all your coverage there. So modeling this in such a way is very tough, and it's not easy task, and
Right.
it's not easy.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm yeah, I was just saying, if I'm looking at this on a spreadsheet, while I'm forecasting my next 1 year, if someone tells me I'm running these instances or serverless for like 1 year straight up, it looks good on spreadsheet if it
But
stays as is. If it changes, then it still look good on spreadsheet, but
what about in the
not all.
bill? That's where the finance teams pay the bill, right? And that's where they
Yeah.
pay the money. What happens in the bill though?
Well, on the bill, it's a waste, of course, because I don't my usage changed, but it's a nice spreadsheet view.
So now we know that there are advantages, disadvantages, planning and modeling included on all this. What actually works? That's the main question that comes to your mind. I know that's
Mhm.
one of the main reasons to join the session, right? That's where we jump into a new topic called as adaptive laddering. So just before going deeper into this topic, before Raj hits on it, I want to give you a very proper analogy explanation for these things. Reserved instances, database savings plans are nice tools. Whereas laddering and what our enops does is a strategy to make sure you're using these tools to the maximum usage. Any ideas
Right.
on that? Any input on this one, Raj?
No, yeah, definitely. As you said, like we're not doing magic here when we say that, what we are doing in terms of helping customers with databases, commitments, RIs, and savings plan. It's no magic. It's a strategy of what we call as laddering. But before getting into the mechanics of it again, think like an investor, right? Not a gambler, right? There's a lot of difference, because if I'm a gambler, I'm just taking bets, thinking of, oh, okay, this might happen. But I'm an investor. Every decision I make is an informed data backed decision, right? So, for example, like if I look at this, my most stable baseline belongs in RIs, right? That's where I'm going to get my maximum savings output. Your flexible but repeatable usage belongs in savings plans, right? That's what we're trying to ladder here properly. And anything that's spiky stays on demand. period, until it earns trust that okay, it's going to stay for long enough for me to go ahead and do some commitments. Because a lot of times an engineer would come to, when you're doing your sessions and planning, a lot of times engineers think they need a lot of stuff, but when the pressure comes from the top about cutting bills, we find out that a lot of stuff we don't even need. Or there's some instances that, yeah, somebody opened up like 5 months ago and they're no longer in the team. They're moved to, I don't know, different project, or they don't work anymore. So those instances are gone and we're stuck, right? So earn trust, earning trust on anything spiky is very important before you go for commitments. Now, having said all that, you never want to go all in on day one, right? That's what the the difference in strategy is compared to the traditional methods. You ladder commitments gradually, and what's laddering is nothing but, I don't mean like we will just buy smaller chunks like a $1 50 database savings plans of $1. No. What I mean is measuring the true baseline over time, excluding any migration or any edge cases or any noises, separating elastic versus durable usage. What else? Aligning expirations monthly instead of annually, right? So think of, instead of a one big $100 per hour commitment, what I would do, what NOps will do, is multiple staggered databases savings plans, right? Combined with targeted RIs. As I said, once again, anything that's most stable baseline belongs to RIs. So I have to combine my ladder database savings plans or staggered savings plan with targeted RIs, each with different confidence levels, right? Because I look at my usage, I can say, okay, this is my 100% confidence versus this is 80% confidence. So that's that will tell me how much do I want to ladder in one time, right? This creates decision checkpoints instead of one big financial cliff that can only be removed after 1 year term when it's done and dusted. Hope that makes a little bit of sense.
It does, exactly. And at InOps, we don't do both unless until they are valid situations, like you're having more
Yep.
services and serverless and stuff like that. Then we'll introduce savings plans. Otherwise, it just RIs that we start up with and then approach the same approach, right? And there's like, to make this even more sensible, again, as you can see on the graph, it clearly makes sense. It's a timed RIs and commitments that we're purchasing, which is like savings plan could be RIs in a timed fashion manner in different breakouts at different value. By the time the 12-month hit, you have flexibility where we are covering 99.99% from there on, right? And to make this in an even better analogy, I have created this picture, and I love this visual because it clearly explains what you're looking for and what you want, right? And database savings plans fills the gaps in a clear sentence, right? You first have a jar that you need to cover, which is you have to cover this with commitments, and commitments work in this way, and also AWS works in this way. If you have reserved instances, it goes and sit in there because reserved instance get first priority compared to savings plan. So they first cover the maximum as much as possible, and it could be your reserved instances, it could be our reserved instances, doesn't matter. We try to optimize in a way that we are covering as much as possible with reserved instances with same adaptive laddering approach. And then once it sits in there, we think it's full, but it's not. We still have on-demand usage that's going up, right? So because database things can cover almost 9 services, it's like a liquid form. I can fit it in different services in different ways in different hours. So I can fill it all the gaps between the rocks and fill the whole jar in a liquid form with the database things plans. As you can see here, in the visual, it clearly explains we are covering everything, not just with RIs, you can't cover everything, not just with database things plan, it's not going to give you the maximum usage. So combining them will give you the maximum volume with less risk, with maximum savings. So that's what we're looking for. And this is what we look at, and this is how the commitment strategy should look like. And the common question would be, where does enough fit in this use case, and how does it work in this use case, right? So we know it's not a one-time decision. Your changes happen weekly, your usage changes monthly or something like that, or even daily. And for some customers, we have seen it happen hourly, even within databases. And also architecture evolves. For example, some customers start up with project AIs, some people shut down their AI projects and everything, and traffic patterns shift. All these have an impact on the usage. Then question would be, how do we do it? In what's the best way? What can give me maximum savings at less risk with maximum coverage, right? That's the common question that everybody has. And the common question, as we discussed, what does this mean in case of, like, how can enough help me, right? And if you look at it, this means constant forecasting you have to do, constant monitoring that you have to do, and accountability. And instead of you doing this, it's a lot of manual effort. Instead of you doing this, Enos will automate this entire life cycle every hour. And this is not doing it every day or every month. We're doing this at every hour and automating this whole life cycle with laddering your commitments. Could be savings plan, could be RIs. We blend both of them and adjust as your usage changes. And right now, it's only two type of commitments you got, which are two type of tools. There could be a third tool that AWS might introduce later time, or there are some EDP programs, right? We have to blend all in all to make sure you're getting the maximum coverage. And the one of the important point to note here is, right, NOS will always share the risk with the customers. That means we only charge customers, or we only earn only when we make customers realize their savings and customers are able to see their savings. Then only NOS charges a fee for that. That concludes our almost session. And if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comments. We'll be able to see them here. I do see a few questions here. Let me just bring it on the screen for now. Let me just paste it here. So this is a nice question. You explain why RIs and database savings plan should coexist. How do you decide which workload belongs in RIs versus savings plan? Hmm. Raj, you want to take this one?
Yes, I can take it. Now, if I think about it, right? A, not everything is savings plan eligible. That's pretty straightforward answer, right? But B, also, sorry, if you go back real quick to the adaptive laddering, that graph that, yeah, this one, yep. If as you guys probably heard me saying that my most stable baseline, I want to make sure that that belongs to my RIs because I'm gonna get the best discounts most of the times, the best discounts on my RIs, right? If I predict my confidence levels based on data nicely, I can stack up great savings using RIs as compared to a floating savings plans, right? Um, but yeah, it depends on what's my most stable baseline. That should go to RI. Anything that's recurring but maybe changing should belongs to savings plan.
I think we have a spotty connection with Raj here. I think we almost answered that one, but in general, the summary is that you should never go all in. You have to figure out which are stable, which are spiky, and determine based on that, drawing a baseline around what's reliable enough, what's going to stay there forever. And then based on those things, you have to do those commitments. And then adapting laddering strategy will give you more flexibility to go from there on. We also got one more question here. I can help this answer this question. What's the biggest mistake teams make with database savings plans? First one, without knowing, they are thinking that it's going to cover everything, and they just go and blindly commit for a dollar value. That's one of the most common mistake I've seen with customers. Second one, please make sure you take recommendations from AWS that, oh, what is the dollar amount you have to go with, and try to be as conservative on the dollar amount as possible. And the third one is that customers does not know what are their forever resources, that is a legacy workloads that are going to stay forever, that are never going to be upgraded or changed, and what are the workloads that are intermittent, that are going to stay here temporarily for a project and then they're going to go away. They don't know how to model this and how to forecast this in a very flexible manner, and then they keep committing to higher dollar value. And then also we have seen some of the mistakes, what it does not cover and what it covers. If you're just looking at credit and committing to a dollar value, that's never a great approach to do it. So these are the common mistakes that I've seen some of the teams and the customers making it. So high recommendation is that We are happy to help you analyze your environment and give you some recommendations on what you can commit for and what NOps can help you with. So it will be like a great partnership, so that we are not committing for everything and you don't need to pay for something that you can commit for. And we will take the remaining of it and we'll manage the remaining coverage for you. So those are the few ideas I would recommend, and have to go with that approach without you or the teams committing, making a huge commitment risk. Awesome. These are the two questions I can see here. Uh, Again, me and Raj, we both are available for any of your questions. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn or send an email to our NOps email or marketing email. We're happy to help you and look into your environments and give you some analysis for you guys, and look into how NOps can help you as well. Awesome. I'll just give a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, just to see if I have any questions, if I missed any questions here. Looks like there aren't any more. All right. Thanks for joining, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.